Hey guys, and welcome to another review. This time it's for the Technomancer, and it's by myself, Ben, of course. Who else would be doing this? I heard about the Technomancer a few months ago. It's been published by Focus Home Interactive, who are rapidly sort of positioning themselves as this new kind of mid-level publisher, picking up IP and titles from lots of sort of larger indie studios and giving them a real push, promoting them, really putting them out there for people to see, which is a really cool thing actually. I'm really digging that idea. Basically, the Technomancer is made by a group of French developers called Spiders. And one of the first things you might notice when playing the Technomancer is that while the English is good and the translation is solid, it does sometimes feel European, and maybe that it doesn't fit, it doesn't quite work in a Western sense. Sometimes the pacing is a little bit off, sometimes the delivery is a little bit off, but look, it's a minor thing. Spiders in 2013 put out a game called Mars Warlogs. Now this was actually a game on XBLA and PC that I missed. I remember being quite intrigued by it at the time, and after getting this for review, I've looked into Mars Warlogs quite a bit. Not going as far, I'll admit, not going as far as playing it, but I've really looked into it. And it bears some striking resemblances to the Technomancer. It might be a little less pretty, a little less polished, but a lot of the combat tenets and the style and the ideas is there, and it makes a lot of sense that the Technomancer is a sequel to it. Even though at no point does the Technomancer really make it clear that's the case. That's cool. I think they're probably aware that, you know, not a lot of people played Mars Warlogs, and therefore they wanted to give the Technomancer a good chance at life doing its own thing, and not necessarily bearing down as a sequel upon a predecessor that not a lot of people had actually played. Pretty smart move. Now let's talk about the Technomancer itself. In the Technomancer, you play as this guy called Zachariah. You're a Technomancer who's basically this guy on Mars who has powers. I don't want to say what they are or where they come from because there's some spoilers, and all the footage you're seeing here that I've captured is from the early level of the game, the early part of the game. Though it's different times I've revisited it, but basically everything is captured from the earlier location, shall we say. And as a Technomancer, you're got this guy with electric powers basically, and you can infuse it with your weapon, as you see me fighting with various times throughout these clips, and you can use it to cast sort of spells and abilities, and that gets us into the crazy amount of different skills and trees and upgrades that you have in the Technomancer. You have 3 different types of upgrades, from skills to attributes and to talents, I believe is what they all are. And all of these things layer on to help you create your form, your type of Zachariah. And Technomancer actually reminds me the most of 2 things. It's very reminiscent of like an early BioWare game. Think of a Knights of the Old Republic or a Mass Effect 1 in its sort of structure and its sort of playability. And its leveling systems, it's quite complex. It's not a modern Western RPG, which has cut back on a lot of those things. It's definitely classic in that sense, and that I really appreciate that actually, having that flexibility and really thinking about the build I want to make and the character I want to create. And then another thing like BioWare is that focus on a named, scripted main character rather than a dude you create yourself, so that he can have a real narrative and a story. And Technomancer's story, it's pretty strong actually. I was quite compelled, and I wanted to find out what was going on. And I wanted to find out about the relationships and stuff with your companions, of which there are many. And so you usually have a party of 2 other people rolling with you, which is cool because that takes me to another thing it reminds me of. Technomancer is hard. Technomancer's combat is kind of reminiscent of The Witcher. It's pretty punishing. You have these 3 different styles. You either fight with a staff, a sort of a shield and club, or a dagger and a gun. And they all sort of suit situations differently. I really did lean into the staff combat, actually, the full-on warrior sort of stance. I really enjoyed that. But because it's difficult, you need those companions, and you need to think about how you're going to spec them out and level them up and how you're going to use them, because it can be a challenging experience, Technomancer. And, that's one of the cool things about this game, is actually that it is hard, and that it doesn't necessarily give you lots of easy things to do. I found myself having to, first of all, I started on medium, and then early on in the game had to drop down to easy, and then I went back up to medium as I got the hang of things. So, that's That says a lot about the combat here. I mean, you can see from the visuals, it's not the most fantastic looking the game in the world. Textures are a bit weak. And when I downloaded this game initially, I saw 8 gigabytes, and I thought to myself, on a next-gen title, that's a very small download. I'm going to see a lot of reused textures and a lot of reused environments. And I'm not, you're not wrong. You do a lot of revisiting. But as the game goes on, it opens up with more locations, though I did get tired of having to constantly revisit the original location throughout the game, through the same tunnels and everything like that. And in that classic sense of a Western RPG, like a BioWare or whatever, there's like no fast travel, none at all. So you are just constantly running through, and if you've seen in these videos, you have this sort of map overlay you can bring up because it's labyrinthian, and you're just, getting lost and, picking your way through, and that's not necessarily the most fun experience in the world, though I kind of enjoyed the fact that Spider's really committed to that concept of an old-style Western RPG, and didn't give you a lot of those sort of easy things that, you used to cheat out almost on the new modern RPGs. For the most part, though, I've really enjoyed my time with this game, and I really commend Spiders on their ambition. Now, they might not stick everything, the writing, the story aren't, they're not top flight, they're not AAA, but they're somewhere safe and comfortable in the middle, and that's cool, man. I'm glad this sort of game exists, and I'm really glad that people are making these games with these ambitious sort of projects and concepts. They might not always work. The game has problems. It's not buggy, but it does have sort of pacing issues and, like I said, some writing problems. And to some, the menu layouts and all of the interface can be a little bit obtuse. But, it's a cool thing. And you don't need to play Mars Warlords to get it. I really enjoyed, actually, my time with Technomancer, more than I thought I would. And, I'm glad it's out there. It is a kind of a BT game. It's like going to be like £40-something, a little bit cheaper than the AAA. And I struggled with the score, but I think, all in all, I give Technomancer 3 out of 5.